Welcome to the How-To SAMMY. In this video, we will walk through the key features of SAMMY in order to get you acquainted with the functionalities, the workflows, and the user interface. We're talking about SAMMY, the tool built by Codific to help manage security assessment and maturity models. These are the topics we will cover. The first topic we will cover is establishing scope in SAMMY. If you have not yet logged into SAMMY, you will initially get a wizard that will help you select your first scope and your first assessment. If you've already done that and you would like to create a new one, you will go to Scopes and you will have a list of the different scopes in your organization. A scope is, as the name implies, the unit you are assessing. And the way you create scopes will very much depend on the type of framework you are using. For example, you may use NIST CSF at an organization-wide level. You may use OWASP SAM at a business unit level. You may use OWASP DSOM at a development team level. And you may do Cyber Resilience Act assessment at a product line level. It's up to you to decide what scopes make sense for you. And you create the scopes in SAMMY by going to Manage Scopes. You can visualize them here in a list, or you can have a hierarchical view, which gives you a kind of organigram of the organization, the name of the scopes, and then in the smaller print below it, the type of assessments that are being done on these scopes. So that is how to create a scope within SAMMY. Now, when we've created a scope within SAMMY, then we have to select a security framework. So how to select a security framework within SAMMY? Let's create a new scope so we have a clean slate. Let's say no parent scope. This is a new business unit. And we can already select the initial assessment here, or we can select multiple assessments. We'll create another video to go over the choice of frameworks here. I imagine for most people arriving at this point, you already know which frameworks you're going to be using and you're looking for a tool to implement this framework. If that is not the case, we will create another video in order to introduce the choices of frameworks you have and which ones may be adequate for which kind of use. Let's say we're going to create a SAM assessment here for this scope, and then this scope is created with a SAM assessment. Here it is, new business unit, so I can click on the assessment list and I have a SAM assessment for this scope. Of course, I can add more assessments if I want. I can also do a DSOM assessment, for example, and then I'm adding a DSOM assessment to this scope. And I switch to this specific assessment by pressing the play button here. So now I'm switching to the SAM assessment. If I go to my assessment, I have the SAM assessment here. If I switch to new business and then new business and then the DSOM assessment, I'm switching to the DSOM assessment. I can either switch here through the drop-down menu. Your drop-down is probably less populated than mine initially, or you go back to scopes and you can have a more structured overview here of the different scopes and assessments you have. All right, so let's say we have selected our scope and we have selected our framework. Now, how do we do the actual assessment? So I'm going to go into the SAM assessment we just created. Let me see, where is my new business unit? Here it is. And we have a SAM assessment here. And I go to assessment screen. Here I have all the questions of OWASP SAM and I can start filling these out. By default, you'll start on the quick view. This is a one-page layout of all of the questions of the SAM framework. And in the answers, these will have the specific answers that relate to this framework. Some frameworks have specific answers. Other frameworks don't really. They're just controls, for example, that are supposed to be in place. And then in some cases you may see CMMI answers pop up here. That's a cybersecurity maturity model that looks at how well a certain process or control has been implemented. In this case, I'll fill out the questions here, and I can provide some remarks and recommendations here. This is good. We could also do this and that. These things are then linked to this stream, as it's called in OWASP SAM, but in other frameworks it could be called something else. So within the tool we like to call it an element. So these comments are linked to this element, and I can fill out the whole assessment, and on each one of the elements there will be a audit trail of everything that has been assessed, changed, commented, and so on. On the top you will see a progress bar. The progress bar is currently 3% complete. As I answer more questions, more of this frameworks is complete, and eventually I'll reach to 100%. I can also switch to the detailed view, which gives me more options. For example, adding documentation. I can add some documentation by adding comments, descriptions, files, or link controls from a specific control framework or custom controls that I have in my organization. And here is the audit or the timeline that we have of everything that has been added, commented, and done on this stream. All right, as I fill out my security assessment, I want to see what the outcomes are. I want to see where I am at. So if I go to the reporting tab, I have the scores of the things that I have answered so far. I only answered questions around security metrics and create and promote and measure and improve so far, and this is the levels where we're at. These are all the practices that I have filled out, and here are things related to this is progress, and these are target postures, which we'll come back to a little bit later. If I have multiple business units or multiple scopes that are being assessed under the same framework, I can also compare them here across the organization. So here I can select from all the ones that have a SAM assessment. I can select which ones I want to compare. If I switch to another framework, let's say I go to a BSIM assessment, then I will get the scopes in my organization that have a BSIM assessment, and I will be able to compare those. There's also an export button that allows you to export certain reports. We'll come back to that a little bit later. The most straightforward one is the assessment report, which is specifically the report of the assessment of that framework, which we are doing here. Creating and setting target postures in SAMMY. Okay, so maybe, especially if you're using a maturity model, the target is not maximum maturity in everything, but the target is the most adequate maturity level for each one of the practices for this specific business unit or scope. So in order to manage that, we will be selecting a target posture. A target posture is an objective. So here I have my different target posture, and for example, I have a baseline customer facing application target posture or a high risk application target posture. I can go have a look at that. I have a SAM target posture here, and I can go into a high risk application in SAM. Now I'm managing the target posture. So this is not where I am right now, but this is the standard I'm setting for these teams. So this is going to be the goal for all these teams that get this target posture assigned. This one has already been filled out, so I can go back to my scopes and I can assign this target posture to, for example, this business unit here. They are this is the parent scope, sorry, description, parents. I need to go in first, sorry, go in here, go to my SAM, here's my target posture for SAM. Yes, so this was high risk application SAM. Now I've set this target posture for this scope. So if I go back to my reporting, I will also have the little bullseyes of where I should be in the different practices. Again, I can click down and I can see where each one of the things are supposed to be. And as I fill this out, it will also highlight any gaps here of the different activities. And when we create a gap report, this then looks at the percentage to target. So how close are we to the targets, as well as the absolute score on these assessments. Some target postures you create, and some target postures will be provided by the tool. So there are some community target postures, such as, for example, baseline CRA target posture and a general baseline application target posture for web apps. But you're of course free to create your own, and the typical use case is that a very large organization would have maybe 2 or 3 categories of products or groups or business units that have different risk profiles and different requirements, and therefore each of them will get assigned one of those 2 or 3 target postures depending on their profile, risk appetite, and so on. So that's how you create and set target postures in SAMMY. Then on a more micro level, if you want to create a manage an improvement of a certain process, we're going to go to the assessment, and let's see, which assessment am I in? I'm in my new assessment. Yes, this is the one I was filling out. Let's say I'm going to take another activity that I haven't filled out yet. No, and no at this point. So the question then is this good enough, or does this need improvement? First, there may be a validation step. We're going to skip this for now. We'll come back to this later. And now the question is whether or not this is good enough, or this needs improvement. If this is good enough, we don't want to do anything, then I can just archive this stream and restart evaluation. Then it brings it back to the next evaluation. Or I can start an improvement process. I can see here in this little target icons that actually I have a target posture here, and I'm supposed to get to a higher level, but I'm not. So let's start an improvement process, and this creates a roadmap for this activity. So let's say we want to get to, well, at least this, and this. This is my objective for this year. By the end of the year, I would like to be there. This is the plan of improvement for this year. And I can finalize the improvement plan. And that has been logged here. And this improvement plan could be linked to Jira, could create a ticket or an epic, or could link to any other ticketing systems or external tools. If I go look at my reporting, I now have where we are at now, and we have we should also see the roadmap because it's not in this practice, it's here, right? We don't have anything yet, but this thing is in the works. If I have some things are ready and other things are on the roadmap, this will become more evident that there's a different tone to the colors there. Improvement. Yes, so here you can see this is where we're at, and this is the improvement stage. This was all improvement, so you can really see it well there. And if I zoom in, I see where the improvement is planned. The improvement is planned here in Create and Promote. So that is how you create improvement plans in improvement roadmaps in SAMMY. Again, this is something that will export when you're exporting in reports, in gap reports. Those improvement plans can also be included. Creating automated security assessment reports in SAMMY. So I mentioned this a little bit. What are the assessment reports that we can generate? First of all, there is an overall assessment. You can add some content. This is for my team this year and nothing else. I can generate. And I have the assessment report for this scope. So this is the new business unit. And I haven't filled out the whole assessment, but it has the gap analysis. It has the different scores. It has the comments from if there's an external auditor, from the auditor, from the assessor, and so on. Everything can be found here and will be automatically generated. If you are a professional user using this for your customers, you can also have this customized so that it is branded with your branding instead of Codific branding. If that is of interest to you, reach out to me to hear about the implementation partner program. Other reports that we can generate. You can create an assessment report in Word if you want. They're easier to adapt it more yourself if you want to. You can export it as an interactive report with a HTML. So this HTML can then be embedded in other systems wherever you're presenting. And compliance documentation is specifically relevant for compliance frameworks such as ISO 27001. That would be the statement of applicability. In group reporting, you also have Excel gap analysis and detailed Excel exports that will be looking at the different groups and the comparisons of the different groups. All of these things automatically generate from the data you have in SAMMY, and therefore you don't need to create custom reports each time. You just click and print and you have the automated security assessment reports. You may also want to manage different suppliers within SAMMY. So let's say I have my scopes, this is my organization, but I may also have suppliers that I would like to have at least do assessments or self-assessments. So here what I do is I select the supplier's name, let's say software supplier 3. And the contact person is Jimmy rock and roll, and his email is jimmy@whatever. And here's the important part. What am I going to ask them to fill out? Now I'm going to ask them to fill out based on one of the frameworks that I have, which can be a standard framework or a custom framework I created, which I'll come back to in a little while. And with that also a target posture. And with the target posture, this is the bar to which we hold them. And the target posture allows you also to eliminate questions. So if the target on a certain question is 0, they won't appear in their assessment. So then it becomes a subset of the framework. So like this, I send it out and it should be sending out to it's been sent to the supplier. They will receive an email that they've been invited to do a assessment and self-assessment, and whenever they are done, we will get their report. So to this supplier, we've sent one questionnaire, a SAM questionnaire, but we can ask the same supplier to do another questionnaire. And whenever they have it done, it will populate here. Yeah, you can export it to the SAM toolbox, to Excel, and to PDF as well will be available. Later on in a further update, depending on when you see this video, you will also be able to go into the assessment, specifically look at the gaps and reply to the supplier based on the gaps for more documentation or for an improvement roadmap that you would like them to implement. That is managing suppliers in SAMMY. How How to create custom frameworks. Okay, so now we are using standard frameworks, but you may want to create your own framework, or you may want to mix and match different frameworks. So then you go to custom frameworks and you click on create new. My fabulous, my super framework. And then I can either manually create the questions and the answers, or I can import from existing. For example, I actually really like some of DSUM questions. So maybe in DSUM design, I can import this page, the page of which questions around patch management in DSUM. So like this, you can mix and match different questions from different frameworks. This is especially useful if you have your own derivative of a framework, but you don't use a framework exactly, or if you have custom questionnaires that you send out to your suppliers. That is how you create custom frameworks in SAMMY. And then one more topic that I haven't mentioned is how to automatically fill out assessments in SAMMY. This is a bit of magic. When you have done an assessment completely, there are different mappings between frameworks. There are several levels of quality of mappings. Let me go to an assessment that has been filled out. Let's see here. Is this filled out? Yes, this is 100% filled out. This is a SAM assessment. So here I could go to map to other frameworks, and I can select the framework I would like to map to. And now you need to pay attention to the labels that we have in front of here. We use, amongst other things, OpenCRE, which is an OWASP project that maps different frameworks together. That is great because it maps a lot of frameworks together and allows us to do a lot of mappings. But the mappings are not perfect, and they don't allow us to automate anything. It just creates a suggestion as to, okay, this relates to that topic in the OWASP top 10, or that relates to, so here you see, for example, which topics in the OWASP top 10 relate to which SAM streams. But in some cases, we have created higher quality mappings that go directly from one framework to the other, whereas OpenCRE goes through a level of abstraction. The direct mappings, the high quality mappings are created manually, and they go directly from one framework to the other. For example, between SAM and NIST CSF, or between SAM and IEC 6244341. These ones will give you a bit more of meta information, so it will give like a suggestion as to where the scores could be, and you could also export this to Excel. But then the real magic happens with the ultra high quality mappings. These are mappings that include mathematical information about the coverage of each one of these different elements in the different frameworks, for example, between SAM and DSUM. And this allows us, if we have done the SAM assessment, to generate the DSUM assessment. And it will then carry over any documentation, evidence, comments we've made in the SAM elements in order to populate the DSUM elements. And you will see at the top how far we are complete. So this assessment is now 81% complete. There is 19% of things that are not answered through SAM. We'll have to go answer them manually. It also tells you here how much is generated by this mapping. So it gives details on why it is this score. and how reliable this is, or how much coverage there is. That is the key here to the mapping. So with that, you can, if you have one single source of truth, you can use that to very quickly do different assessments in different frameworks as painlessly as possible. And that is one of the goals that we have for SAMMY, to allow you to create a nice inventory of the processes in place and the state of maturity and policies and controls, so that compliance and reporting in all kinds of frameworks becomes easier. My name is Dag Flachet. I'm here to help you. Let me know if you have any questions.